Hello and welcome back to this episode of the Law of Relevancy podcast. I'm Cord Zone. I'm your host. I'm the CEO of Bake More Pies, a full-service marketing and advertising agency located here in the Tampa Bay area. We like to talk about things that are happening right now. And we're joined today with Danny Cooper. Danny, thank you for joining us. Danny is the Senior Marketing Manager for Tampa International Airport. He's been there 7.5 years, and he's really doing a great job. The airport is on fire in a good way.
It's important to note that.
Yeah, it's important to note that. The airport in Tampa is recognized as a leader in the country. I mean, I think the experience of going through TIA is actually something people look forward to.
Yeah, I think it's an experience that people look forward to as travelers. And we actually have a very large following of people who just come to the airport to hang out because it's such a nice place to be. So we have curated an environment for just about anybody.
You know, I've actually done that. I've actually, I work here in the West Shore district of Tampa, and, you know, it just happens to be one of the great places you can go to get a good bite to eat. I mean, all of the famous restaurants from around the Tampa Bay area just about are located right there in areas where you can access without having to have a ticket.
That's right. Yeah. If you're going to go to Chick-fil-A or you're going to go to PF Chang's, you want to do a Hard Rock Cafe, Wendy's, yeah, all right there in the main terminal.
Yeah. Or even what about some of the like the Columbia or Ducky's or some of the other restaurants like that?
And those are out on the air sides, and we do have our airside access program. It was suspended because of the pandemic, but we will bring that back. It's called TPA All Access. And that was in direct response to hearing over and over and over again about people's love of being able to go to the air sides in the old days, and our, of course, intuitive knowledge that we have some great shops and concepts that exist in that post-security environment. So a lot of our guests aren't able to get there. So we wanted to come up with a way to make it accessible to the general public. And it took a lot of hand-in-hand work with TSA and some of the other agencies at the airport to make sure we had capacity for screening and that it was not going to be a burden on anything that we had at the air sides. And it was really, really successful. We had expanded it, and then we had to kind of put it on hold, but we will bring it back as soon as it's safe to do so.
Well, that's just one of the things you guys are innovating with there at the airport. I think you guys are doing a lot of things differently than some of the other airports around the country. And I think that shows in some of your numbers, doesn't it?
It does. And if you think, it's interesting because I don't think a lot of airports or large kind of governmental or quasi-governmental agencies like we are, I don't think a lot of them spend enough time on what it means to be branded or what it means to be committed to what you are. To some extent, you know, an airport could be viewed as a commodity or a utility, and it could be treated as such by the people who use it or by the people who operate it. For us, not only do we have a really good sense of what our brand is, but we also have a really, really good idea of what our users think our brand is. And we're always trying to marry those together. So every bit of our experience matches with who our guest is, with what experience that guest is expecting and what we want to give them. And it's everything. It's when we remodeled, making sure that there was copious amounts of natural light coming through our building that we didn't previously have, bringing in components of the sky, the water, and all the different things that we brought into the branded elements in the airport. Our actual logo, when this is fully colored, right, is blue to red, and it's the sun to the sky, right? So it's the idea, or it would be but the idea that we do those things purposely, right? And like up to and including the music that we play throughout our campus, which we get compliments on all the time. It's not what you would expect, and that's what makes it cool. People don't expect to go to an airport and it be nice and clean. They don't expect awesome shopping. They don't expect a meal that they would brag about if it weren't at an airport, but we provide all of those things. The idea being the experience at the airport should stand on its own as exceptional, not it was good for an airport. No qualifiers, no anything. It should just be the experience should stand on its own as exceptional from start to finish. And that's what guides us every day.
It's like a luxury mall that you can visit and go to London.
Yeah. Yeah. And here's the funny thing, Cords, like if you can go back to 1967 when George Bean and the group of local leaders decided that we needed a new airport. And from that very beginning, their vision was Tampa International Airport would be the first and foremost airport. And it would also be the first airport in the country, if not the world, that was designed people first. Up to that point, every airport had been designed for airplanes to come and go. The gate hold areas, the move to the airplane, the way the airplane moved, it was all about the airplane coming and going, which airlines clearly love. But passengers were an afterthought in that dynamic. So for us, the airport was conceived from the very beginning as people first. And then we've just continued to extend that beyond the built environment. We don't make a decision at the airport ever without some consideration, if not full consideration, of what will this do to the guest experience and how can we make this benefit the guest? Because at the end of the day, it's the most important thing we have. It's the most important differentiator we have in the marketplace.
Well, you can clearly see it when you actually visit the airport. I grew up flying in and out of Hartsfield International Airport in Atlanta, and I think they've changed the name to something else now. But anyhow, the idea was it was a series of rectangles designed to move the planes in and out, and it's extremely efficient. Obviously, it's the busiest airport in the world. But when you go to the Tampa International Airport and you go into the concourses, you see these sweeping lines that come around and curve, and there's some empty space. It looks like it's all designed as part of the architecture and as part of just that travel experience. And I end up feeling more excited about my travel when I'm there than it being some kind of a necessary evil.
Mm-hmm. And that's 100% by design, especially in our newer construction, where we've been able to take some of these things into account and things that we've learned either from things we've done in the past or from around the industry. But it's 100% by design. So one of our core values at the airport is obviously safety and security. And we think safety and security in a lot of different ways. But when we match that up with one of the things our guests value most at the airport, it's safety and security. And they value it slightly different. Of course, they expect TSA, they expect our airport police department, they expect all of those physical security measures, but there is a degree of emotional security that our guests feel from exactly what you were just saying. It's not crammed. There are open, sweeping spaces. You don't feel like you're going to get lost in a corner. You don't feel like you're going to get turned around and not being able to find your way around. So there is safety and security in this inherently stressful experience of going to an airport. We've removed a lot of that simply by really, really superior design and always thinking about how the guest will experience the space.
Well, I think that also really helps in regards to the economic function of the airport. I mean, as an economic engine for our area, because conventions can invite their guests into town and sporting events like the Super Bowl that we just had, people can come to Tampa and be more excited, or the Tampa Bay area, and be more excited about being here because they've had an excellent experience through the gateway of which they arrived, right?
That is as accurate a statement as I could have made myself. That is, I mean, one huge part of our mission is to be the warm welcome and embrace upon arrival, in the thank you for visiting, we'll see you next time send off on your way out. And that understanding of what that part of our mission is one of the things that led us to being so hyper local with our programs as it relates to food, beverage, and retail. If you're a convention visitor and you have one of those packed conventions, and you're basically airport to convention to dinner to convention to dinner to airport, right, the next day, and you don't have a chance to explore our region the way that we hope you could, or the way that our leisure travelers have the opportunity to do, then the opportunity you have for that is at the airport, because you have to spend time coming and going there. So we were very purposeful about curating that experience to bring in all of those elements. So you might not be able to go to Colombia in Ybor City and get a 1905 salad in the original Cuban sandwich, but you can get the exact same thing at the airport. And that was a great vision of some of our leadership team 10 years ago when they came in and started talking about what does the next generation's Tampa International Airport look like. And it's been such a thrill to be a part of it. It's been a real thrill to see our community embraces the airport to an extent that you don't typically see. And we joke all the time, our airport has fans. Like our airport has fans, right? And when I tell people I work for the airport, locally, it's, the first thing people say is, oh my gosh, you work for the airport. I love our airport, right? So it's not like I love your airport. It's not like I love the airport. It's ours. There's a sense of ownership and pride. And they're real fans of the airport. And we take that responsibility seriously, and building the next generation's version of that was a heavy lift and was a lot of responsibility because people have been so proud of it already. But I think the response that we've gotten, that we did it right, that we brought the right things in, and we've really curated this experience that if you're a local or you're a visitor, you're just like, this is pretty incredible to have here in our market.
Well, let's talk about some of those tactics. Like you gave one example with the food and beverage side. Let's talk about some of the more specific examples. So you've been at this for 7.5 years with the airport. We've seen tremendous growth. We've seen tremendous capital investment during that time. What are some other tactics as a senior marketing manager for such a large quasi-governmental organization like that? Are you involved in, and how do you what are some of the lessons you've learned in those roles?
Well, I would say the best way to talk about that, I think, would be the transition in the evolution that I've seen since I started 7.5 years ago. 7.5 years ago, I started 6 months before we broke ground on this expansion and modernization. That's ongoing and will be through the end of this decade. But through that expansion and previously, the airport had always been a proud member of the community. So our advertising and our strategies largely related to the Tampa International Airport is proud to support Visit Tampa Bay. Tampa International Airport is proud to support Visit St. Pete Clearwater.
Sure, the obvious partnerships that you would have.
Yeah,
right.
And then we kind of shifted into these are the reasons why we're modernizing our campus. So if you saw an ad or you heard a radio hit or something, it was about we're modernizing the airport to make sure that we can stay on pace with the growth of the region, and you can expect these impacts. So a lot of our marketing was really paid communications, making sure that we were a value add to the PR spots that we were doing and that we were finding was happening. Well, now that we've kind of finished the most passenger-facing pieces of the construction with the removal of the rental cars and the modernization and the expansion of our terminals, our terminal and our airsides, we've really started to look at what's the next evolution of what we do. Now we've got these great food, beverage, and retail concepts, and we've got these amazing parking products that are like our parking is better than what most airports have. In fact, I'd say it's probably better than any. Like our economy parking garage is a fantastic parking product, and it's what most airports would call long-term. So like in most airports, economy is 3 miles off campus somewhere in a grass lot with a bus coming and going. Ours is a mile and 1.4 miles away, connected by an air-conditioned, super modern, ultra fancy train. But how do we tell people about what these products are and which one matches best for what they're trying to do? How do we let people know, hey, you should arrive early to the airport, or plan some extra time, because you're going to want to do this shopping and you're going to want to make sure you have time to get some of the food and beverage that we have there at the airport. We have a signature cocktail that we worked in partnership with our concessions team to work through all of our bars at the airport, because again, and it's, you should have something that is unique to that experience. So
what's it called? Like the Bon Voyage or something?
It's called the Spirit of Flight.
Okay,
Spirit being the thing. So
spirits. Got it.
And so and then the next piece of it that we're getting more and more into now is understanding, where do people visit Florida from? Where are these guests departing, both in the United States as well as internationally? And then trying to understand from their standpoint, are they trying to go to Miami, Orlando, Fort Lauderdale, or are they trying to go to Florida? And they just know those places a little bit more than they know Tampa. A large majority of them are just trying to go to Florida. So we try to then reach out with digital marketing strategies and targeted strategies. International travelers start to look a year in advance, especially European travelers. They plan their vacations well in advance. Domestic United States travelers, right? We book a trip 2 weeks before we go. Even if we've been planning on going for months, we don't book the flight until 3 weeks before. I don't know why, but that's the kind of the booking window for domestic travelers in the US. But international travelers start planning well in advance. And so they're leaving that digital footprint behind that we can obviously use all the tools that we know about as marketers to track them and find them. And at the point of purchase, say, you're coming to Florida anyway, you might as well come to the area with the best beaches, the best history, the best culture, and the best airport. Your best experience, the best way you're going to have a Florida vacation is for it to start and finish in the Tampa Bay area. You might go to Orlando and go to the theme parks while you're there, but you should start and finish here with our culture, our award-winning restaurants, our award-winning beaches, and the best airport in the world. So we do a lot of that now. And that's something that we hadn't previously done. But then again, as well as I do, that a lot of these technologies and tactics, I've been there 7.5 years, and a lot of these tactics and technologies have been evolving in the last 7.5 years. So I've been in this game for a really long time, going on 23, 24 years at this point as a communications and marketing person. And it's almost comical to go back to the old days, right? It's almost comical to go back to, where do you put an ad? Like what magazine? Do I need to buy a full page in a newspaper, bus benches, or whatever, the tactic was in the day. Where now you can be so focused on, if you know your customer, your user, you can find them. And of course, then your conversions are much more likely, and your leads and your customers are much more qualified because you know your customer, and they're giving you all the information. You just have to put all the pieces of the puzzle together. So we spend a lot of time doing that now with our users.
Yeah. And I would think, one of the things that I love about your airport, I don't know if you're doing this, but one of the things that has always been part of that warm experience that you mentioned was the free Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
And so why not when they log onto the free Wi-Fi, get some of that information, and be able to retarget them later.
For sure. And we've done some, we have not implemented any of the strategies, but we have done some initial data capture things to see what do we get and what can we do with it. We've not quite gotten to the point of doing the retargeting, but we have cell phone captures, geofencing, all that. And you'd think it's you would think, why does an airport need to do that, right? But one, you need to know your guest. You need to know your customer. You need to know what they're doing. And two, we can curate the experience a little bit differently for them. But, there's the other piece of it. While we're not hyper competitive in our industry amongst our peer airports, but there is healthy competition, right? I mean, we don't want to lose a 50-50 guest, like say somebody in Polk County. We don't want to lose that. We don't want to lose that passenger to Orlando. We think we provide a superior experience and equal, if not close enough to equal connectivity. So in that regard, that's a guest that we want to compete for. And not in a way of running down our peer airports, not in a way of saying, oh, these places are awful, but just saying, like I said before, your best opportunity to have the best Florida vacation is to come through our airport.
Yeah, there's no question the hospitality there is just superior, and it's just better, and it's not in any kind of braggadocious type of way.
Right. No, we're super proud of what we do. Don't get me wrong. And we'll pat ourselves on the back from time to time. And the industry pats us on the back a good bit as well. We're one of the only North American airports to have some of the international awards we have. We're JD Power Award winners over and over again. And a lot of that, almost all of that comes from our guests telling people that they love us. It's not us submitting for these awards. It's our guests telling these folks that we're good at what we do.
Sure. So for example, one of the tactics that I've witnessed in the marketplace has been, obviously I'm a member of, multiple chambers of commerce. And one of them, I've seen a couple of presentations from the airport in these groups, whether it's West Shore Alliance or the Tampa Chamber, and just explaining to business owners in the area what the plans are, because as a business owner, if I know what's happening out there, I might want to invest in another office or have access to it, or help promote transportation to and from that area. Maybe it's an executive suite for my clients. I don't know, but at least that if I'm aware of it, in the community, I can support it in a way that might suit my business best. What are some other things that you guys are doing? Like, what does the typical day for Danny Cooper look like as a marketing manager within the airport? Are you ordering research from surveys and things like that? Are you putting together presentations for government leaders? Like, what does it look like?
So my typical day, right? So one of my primary accounts right now is parking, and we've recently launched an online booking system. So our guests can save a little bit off of the gate rate by booking online, and then you just scan in and scan out of the parking lot. So building awareness of that product and working through, the revenue curve of getting people into that, and then the value add that they can be as they become loyal customers and those things. So I'm spending a lot of time on that. We're always looking at research, and we get research from all sides of the equation. So one of the things I say when people ask, what industry are you in?
All of them.
The answer to me is yes, right? Are you in transportation? Yep. Tourism? Yes. Economic development? Yes. Air travel? Yes. Government? Yes. Food, beverage, and retail? Yes. Hospitality? Yes. Right? It's all of those. And all kind of wrapped up into one really, really tidy package. So we get research from all sides of that. We look at Visit Tampa Bay, Visit St. Pete, Clearwater, so all of our destination marketing organizations, we look at their macro level data. What are hotel stays looking like? How long? When are people booking? If they're booking their hotel a week out, then they're probably booking their airline either right before or right after. So if we understand what that purchase funnel looks like in old parlance, the funnel looks like, then we know where we can insert ourselves to make sure that at that point of decision, you're using our airport. We look at airline data. We look at airport industry related data. Like I said earlier, I know we're trending 20% above national averages in terms of capacity into and out of our market coming out of the pandemic. So our recovery is going faster.
20% above other airports right now.
Yep, exactly.
You're around 80% of what you were. You're normally
closing on 90. Yeah, we're closing in on 90% to where we were before the pandemic started. which was, annualized out to 22.1 million. So, obviously slower start to our fiscal year this year. We started our fiscal year on October 1st. So the first half is a slow start, but we had, Memorial Day weekend, 37,000 passengers each day over the 4 days. And that's 37,000 each way. So that ends up being, close to 75,000. But we are looking at now, if you annualize that and look at the number of seats, it's what we call capacity or loads. So capacity is available seats into and out of the market. So our available seats into and out of the market are at close to 90% of what they were before the pandemic started. We expect to be at like 97 to 98% by the time we finish the fiscal year, September 30th. The national average is closer to 70. So we're trending 20% above the rest of the country averaged out. So there are markets in there that are performing not quite as well as we are. We're very much at the top of the list. But so there are markets that are underperforming where they were pre-pandemic, and there are markets that are right on it, and then some that are above. But nationally, it's 67%, and we're at 87.
That's phenomenal, especially considering you would think that a lot of our travel is we're almost in what you would call like an off season right now. Because of a lot of people want to come visit, at least adults. Kids want to come when they're out of school, but to go visit the theme parks and all of that. But I would imagine that there is an annual cycle to our business here through the airport.
It is, because we're not a hub airport, as you were talking about. Atlanta. They do about the same amount of business every day. Now they're going to have some peaks and valleys in there, but they're pretty steady across because 80% of their 100 million passengers per year never go pre-security. So they're gate to gate in 42 minutes, get off one airplane and get on another one. We are an origination and destination airport. So 92% of our passengers are originating or destined for Tampa. We don't do a lot of transfer business. There's an 8% transfer business. So interestingly, I always like to say our Atlanta's O&D traffic is exactly the same as ours. So so the full 80% of their traffic doesn't go pre-security. And to get back to the original question, we are heavily seasonal and not as much as we used to be. And that is largely related to a more emerging business segment. So our business leisure mix used to be 30-70. So we were 70% leisure, 30% business. We're starting to see that business number creep closer to 35, sometimes into the 40s. And it's people choosing our market, either businesses that have a lot of travelers that are choosing our market for all the reasons that we know our market is attractive, or individual folks who can live anywhere but choose to live here because of the ease of use of our airport. So we're seeing a really large segment of that emerge as well. But we are still seasonal, and you're absolutely right. Summer for us is a heavy outbound timeframe, and the rest of the year when we are peaking, it's mostly inbound. So spring break for us is a almost, it's a huge inbound game for us. We don't have a lot of people.
Like also the grand finale, like it's at the end of your season almost, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we kind of summer. Then the holidays, obviously, we get a good mix of inbound and outbound. Spring break, huge inbound. Summer, bigger outbound. So we are seasonal. Our least busy month on average annually is September. Not surprising. Summer is over. Everybody's back in school. And our busiest month annually in normal times is March. And that's heavy inbound spring break traffic.
Yeah. Well, very good. So what advice would you give to another communications marketing person listening to this who's maybe they're in the hospitality or restaurant business? Like, what are some things that you've done there at the airport or your team has done that you just feel has been part of the key to success? Maybe some elements around your people first, and how to actually apply that. I mean, a lot of our discussion has been very high level. Like, what are some discrete tactics that can be used?
I think one of the things that we've done, and it's something I so when I worked at USF, previous to the airport, and then when I came to the airport, at USF,
University of South Florida.
Yeah, so University of South Florida. Yeah. So when I was there, and I started in 2008, social media was really kind of emerging as a marketing thing, not just this fun thing to have your own profile, but it was kind of a marketing and communication tool was really emerging. And there was a hesitance, because we didn't know it, there was a hesitance to embrace things that you didn't create, right? So, and so over time, we kind of realized these are USF's, University of South Florida communities that have sprung up organically. How can we add value to that organic community, not try to stop it, not try to seize it and take it over, but in what ways can we engage that audience that is engaging in a way around you, and then how can you be a value add to that? And I would say we've done a lot of that at the airport over the last 6 or 7 years as we've really built out our social media presence. There were groups of fans, groups of plane enthusiasts, groups of people that just enjoyed talking about the process of air service development. We would have people out on social media channels know that a route was going to announce into Tampa before we did, because they were just mining for data out there. Well, so we just engaged them. Said, hey, like, why don't you be a part of a community with us? And then invite them out to the airport from time to time, give them a tour. People that love to take pictures of airplanes, let's not just relegate them to the 9th floor of the parking garage all the time. A couple times a year, let's load up our bus, give them a tour of the airfield, and let them take a picture of, kind of whatever they want. And in doing that, it's kind of funny because you're using this super massive social media tool to do hyper local, hyper focused audience development and engagement. Yeah. You got, as you know, two different strategies, right? And my boss likes to say you got two ends of the spectrum. There's wide net in a shallow pool, and there's a deep net in a more narrow pool, right? So your broad digital social media things are casting a really wide net. And the folks that come in are engaged at, a percentage level that's lower.
Gotcha. Like one example, like that specifically with you guys that I participated in, was there was a 5K event at the airport, and our family, we loaded up, we got the t-shirt. It was really cool. And we had a great time, but it was neat because we actually ran on one of the runways on like a Saturday or Sunday when y'all weren't as busy. And it was really cool. And I can't imagine any other airports doing anything like that.
Well, the ones that have are copying us. So there are some of them out there now, and there aren't very many like large commercial hub, commercial service airports that will do it. And it takes a lot of heavy lifting. For us, it's one way for a couple hours a year, we can bring a large amount of people out to their airport to enjoy it in a way they can't otherwise enjoy it. You're running on a runway. There's so much cool stuff about running on a runway. Like when you're blasting by the signs in your airplane, you don't realize how big those big numbers are. You don't realize like how big the painted numbers are at the end, and you don't realize how wide the runway is, or when you look at an aerial, you think the airport's pretty condensed. And our shortest runway at Tampa International Airport is 6,700 feet long, and that's well over a mile. Our longest runway is 12,000 feet. But when you're going 130, 140 miles per hour in an airplane, it seems pretty darn short.
That is cool.
But when you're at a walking pace or a running pace, suddenly you're like, man, I've been running for like 15 minutes and that's still way down there. So, and our airport's relatively small compared to like a Dallas Fort Worth or a Denver or even in Atlanta. But go back to what you said about the Wi-Fi. It never would have occurred to us to charge somebody for something that we already have. Right? The Wi-Fi, like it's the infrastructure to provide Wi-Fi at the airport is already there. We use it as employees. So all we have to do is section off the non-secure and the secure side, and it's already there. So it never would have occurred to us to charge for something that we could give away. In free parking in our parking garages, that hour worth of free parking, it would not have occurred to us to not do that. Now it costs us money, but it's the right thing to do, to build community, to make people want to be in your facility, to make people want to be around you. So there are lots of different ways to make money that aren't necessarily the right things to do for our audience. And certainly have to give Mr. Lopano, our CEO, a lot of credit for that, because there are plenty of times people come in and say, we can make a lot more money if we do X. And he says, but we could also lose a lot of our audience and a lot of what we stand for by going too far down that road. So he's always working on that balance. And I think to me, that's what makes it so much fun to work there. We are super creative. We do things that a lot of other airports, government, or big companies won't dare to do. Our social media we're one of the top 10 by Creative Loafing, right? Creative Loafing says one of the top 10 Instagram follows in the market. And we have done just so much fun stuff with that that's engaging in building an audience. But then when we turn and we use that audience that we've developed to talk about things that are of import to either us or to the user, they listen and they engage, and they do so differently than they would if we were just always boring and stayed in corporate. So because we're constantly going back and forth with our guests, either in person or through technology, they engage with us differently when we need to communicate things that are important either to us or to them. And I think that's the proper use of social media in today's kind of golden era of technologies. You can use it to build an audience, that then what you do with that audience is the difference maker between success and just having fun. And I think we have fun, but we're also very, very successful with making sure our audience is really well informed and well engaged.
Yeah, I think that's some really great advice, Danny. I really appreciate you coming on the show today. And I think there's a lot of great takeaways, especially in that last little segment there. Where can people follow yourself or the airport if they want to pay more attention? So what's the handle for the airport there?
The airport is, it's tampaairport.com. Mm-hmm. And then we are FlyTPA on Instagram, which is there. Those are in Facebook. You can just Tampa International Airport in the search box, and it'll come up. And we've got several groups now that we have that we administer as well on Facebook in particular. Instagram is a fun follow, and you're also going to get really cool information there. And of course, like most people, Facebook, more detailed information you're going to find there. And then our website is where you'll get the most. And through any of those venues, if you're really interested, you can sign up to receive our newsletters and other information that we're happy to send out if you're interested in receiving it.
That's fantastic, Danny. And you can follow us here on the Law of Relevancy podcast. Our podcast is heard everywhere where podcasts are found. And we also have our social media and our website. Well, Danny, thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you again next time.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.